Hey Eurovision fans, welcome to my channel. You're entering the Cal Zone, and today I'm going to be discussing the controversy and drama surrounding Israel and Eurovision 2026. If you're living under a rock, or maybe you're not a big Eurovision fan and have no clue what I'm talking about, over the last month-ish, there's been numerous countries that have said they're going to withdraw from Eurovision next year if Israel is allowed to compete, and there's going to be a vote in November among EBU members deciding on Israel's participation for next year. I'm going to summarize everything that has happened over the last month, and then I'll give my opinions on this whole situation. Is Israel actually going to get banned? Should they get banned? What's the best solution to this issue? Is this actually even productive, and is it going to solve any of Eurovision's numerous issues? And what I would do if I were in the position of the EBU. After that, I want to discuss the peace plan to end the war proposed by President Trump. I know some people are not going to be interested in that, but I do still want to talk about it because it's very relevant. But first, let's talk about Eurovision 2026. The first domino to fall in this whole saga was RTV SLO, which is the Slovenian national broadcaster, who on September 3rd said they are unlikely going to participate next year. They didn't explicitly say it was because of Israel at the time, but keep in mind that RTV SLO was against Israel participating last year. The next day, Slovenia officially became the first country to say they are going to withdraw if Israel is allowed to compete. September 8th, the Spanish Minister of Culture calls on Spain to withdraw if Israel is allowed to participate. September 9th, RUV, the Icelandic broadcaster, announces they are considering withdrawing if Israel participates. This should not come as a surprise, as Iceland heavily considered withdrawing even in 2024, but eventually decided to compete that year, where they ultimately finished in last place. No shade to Hera Bjork. September 10th, the new director of Eurovision, Martin Green, while speaking to Danish broadcaster DR, said the following regarding potential withdrawals. Quote, "We understand the concerns and deeply held views around the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. We're still consulting with all EBU members to gather views on how we manage participation and geopolitical tensions around the Eurovision Song Contest. Broadcasters have until mid-December to confirm if they wish to take part in next year's event in Vienna. It is up to each member to decide if they want to take part in the contest, and we would respect any decision broadcasters make." September 11th, Ireland and the Netherlands say they're going to withdraw if Israel competes. I'll read the statements from both broadcasters. RTE, the Irish broadcaster, stated, quote, "At the General Assembly of the European Broadcasting Union, EBU, in July, a number of EBU members raised concerns about the participation of Israel in the Eurovision Song Contest. RTE wishes to thank the EBU for the extensive consultation process that was initiated on foot of that meeting and the extension of the option to withdraw from participation without penalty to December. It is RTE's position that Ireland will not take part in the 2026 Eurovision Song Contest if the participation of Israel goes ahead, and the final decision regarding Ireland's participation will be made once the EBU's decision is made. RTE feels that Ireland's participation would be unconscionable given the ongoing and appalling loss of lives in Gaza. RTE is also deeply concerned by the targeted killing of journalists in Gaza and the denial of access to international journalists to the territory and the plight of the remaining hostages." I'll let you take away anything you want from that statement. I'm not commenting on anything yet, just reporting the facts. Overtrost, the Dutch broadcaster, said this, quote, "Human suffering, the suppression of press freedom, and political interference are at odds with the values of public broadcasting. In recent months, Overtrost has engaged in regular consultations with the EBU and other European public broadcasters regarding the future and nature of the Eurovision Song Contest. These discussions have also given extensive consideration to whether Israel can be represented under the current circumstances. The Eurovision Song Contest was founded in 1956 to bring people together after a period of deep division and war. Since its inception 70 years ago, music has been at the heart of the contest as a unifying force with peace, equality, and respect as its core values. Overtrost can no longer justify Israel's participation in the current situation, given the ongoing and severe human suffering in Gaza. The broadcaster also expresses deep concern about the serious erosion of press freedom, the deliberate exclusion of independent international reporting, and the many casualties among journalists. In addition, there is proven evidence of interference by the Israeli government during the most recent edition of the Eurovision Song Contest, in which the event was used as a political instrument. This runs counter to the apolitical nature of the contest. These circumstances are incompatible with the values represented by Overtrost as a public broadcaster. The broadcaster has therefore decided that participation by Overtrost in the Eurovision Song Contest 2026 will not be possible as long as Israel is admitted by the EBU. Should the EBU decide not to admit Israel, Overtrost will gladly take part next year. Pending that decision, all preparations will, for the time being, continue as planned. End quote. So those are the two statements. I am going to comment briefly on them. I think RTE's statement was perfectly fine. Arvotros's statement was very testy. I have yet to see any evidence of any direct Israeli government interference in Eurovision last year. If it's out there, I would like to see it because I like to see both sides, but I'm pretty sure if that did happen, it would have been a pretty big news story. Anyways, moving on. September 14th, a report comes out that the EBU told Khan, that's the Israeli broadcaster, to either withdraw for a year or participate under a neutral flag like the Russian and Belarusian athletes did at the Olympics. Just on a side note, I'm not really sure what that would accomplish since everyone would still know that the neutral flag is Israel, and that wouldn't make either side happy, so that's not a good solution. The next day, September 15th, the EBU denies this report and says there's been no communication with Khan on alternative participation options. September 16th, RTVE, that's again the Spanish broadcaster, officially says that Spain will not compete if Israel is in the contest, which is significant given that Spain is a Big Five member. Also keep in mind that Ana Maria Bordas, the Spanish head of delegation, who's also just terrible at her job, is the new chair of the Eurovision Reference Group. September 17th, the new German Eurovision broadcaster SWR put out a statement regarding the issue. Quote, "The Eurovision Song Contest has been a major musical event for decades, connecting people across Europe and beyond through diversity, respect, and openness, regardless of origin, religion, or beliefs. It is a competition organized by EBU broadcasters, not by governments. As a member of the EBU, ARD, that's the big German broadcaster, SWR is a regional broadcaster, supports the consultation process that has been initiated and the decisions to be made by the EBU. The goal is to reach a well-founded and sustainable agreement that aligns with the values of the EBU," end quote. Also September 17th, DR, the Danish broadcaster, says they're not going to withdraw, putting out the following statement. DR supports ESC as a cultural event that has brought nations together through music since 1957. Our participation is conditional on there still being a strong international community, security in place, and an apolitical framework around the competition. Our participation is neither a support for nor a protest against individual countries, but rather a desire to maintain communities across borders. In a time marked by unrest and division, it is worth reminding each other of the original purpose of competitions like Eurovision, to create a space where we can meet across differences and disagreements. ESC must be preserved as an apolitical community. DR wants to continue to be a part of this, and we've informed the EBU of this," end quote. Also on September 17th, very eventful day, Malta's Minister of Culture, Owen Bonici, maybe he's related to Sarah, wouldn't surprise me, he confirmed that Malta will not withdraw, regardless of if Israel participates. Quote, "Although I completely criticize the actions of the Israeli government, I believe that the window of dialogue should always be open. Culture should be that one safe space where dialogue could always occur," end quote. Another one from September 17th, Norwegian broadcaster NRK put out a statement on things they would like to see change in the contest while not explicitly saying they're going to boycott. Quote, "NRK wants us in the EBU to take a concrete position on whether the Israeli broadcaster's participation in Eurovision damages the competition's reputation. Another key we have is concerns vulnerabilities in the voting system. It is known that Israel has actively tried to influence the voting results through campaigns and actions. This challenges the credibility of the competition itself. NRK believes that the EBU must change the voting system so it's more difficult to manipulate. The third main track in NRK's work on this case concerns the security situation for both the many participants and for NRK's and the other broadcasters' employees in the arena during the final itself. We believe that a democratic process among the members of the EBU will yield a better result and, to a greater extent, safeguard the independence of public broadcasters in the dissemination of news. We believe in using the democratic tools of what is a rule-governed member organization rather than NRK pursuing an independent foreign policy that undermines the credibility of our news coverage. NRK is therefore actively working to ensure that the EBU takes our concerns and those of many others seriously," end quote. And honestly, I think this is interesting because back in 2024, Norway almost withdrew from the final because Israel qualified. There were a couple countries, Ireland, Portugal, Switzerland, those were the top of my head. Those countries almost decided to withdraw from the final because of Israel. They didn't end up doing that, obviously. And then last year, Norway was against Israel participating as well. So although obviously they still have issues, I think it's interesting that they're not actively saying they're going to withdraw. I thought they might have. September 23rd, 3 of RAI's board members, that's the Italian broadcaster, call on Italy to withdraw if Israel participates, citing serious human rights violations in Gaza. They also bring up how Russia and Belarus were banned in 2022 for that reason, which is not entirely true. I'll get to that later. These board members say that the goal is to isolate Israel and get them to stop the killing in Gaza. September 25th, and this is the big news, the EBU decides there's going going to be a vote held in November to decide Khan's fate. Here's the statement put out by the president of the EBU. Dear friends and colleagues, the Executive Board has met today with former EBU Vice President Petr Dvorak to discuss the 2026 Eurovision Song Contest. Following up on the discussion that took place at the EBU Summer General Assembly in London, Petr presented his report to the board based on the feedback he had received from meeting with members. The Executive Board acknowledged that there is an unprecedented diversity of views concerning Khan's participation among EBU members. The board believes that the union stands for inclusiveness and an open cultural dialogue reflecting the values of public service media. Nevertheless, the board recognized that it would not be possible to reach a consensual position on Khan's participation. Given that the union has never faced a divisive situation like this before, the board agreed that this question merited a broader democratic basis for decision whereby all members should be given a voice. Consequently, the board decided to organize an extraordinary session of the General Assembly that would take place online in early November for members to vote on the question of participation in the 2026 Eurovision Song Contest. The formal letter convening this extraordinary session with further details will be sent to you next week. Later that day, Khan put out their response. Quote, Khan, the Israeli Public Broadcasting Corporation, expresses its firm hope that the Eurovision Song Contest will continue to uphold its cultural and non-political identity. The potential disqualification of Israel's public broadcaster, Khan, one of the contest's long-standing, popular, and successful participants, would be especially troubling ahead of the 70th edition of the contest, which was founded as a symbol of unity, solidarity, and fellowship. Any such move could have wide-ranging implications for the competition and the values for which the EBU stands. The EBU statute stipulate for a good reason that extraordinary decisions of this kind require a 75% majority of the General Assembly, an exceptional majority. We are confident that the EBU will safeguard the contest's professional, cultural, and non-political character as it marks the 70-year milestone of uniting by music. So, in summary, you have 5 countries saying they're going to withdraw if Israel is allowed to compete. Spain, the Netherlands, Ireland, and Slovenia, and also Iceland, kind of a soft withdrawal. Iceland is going to withdraw if Israel participates. That seems pretty obvious. There's also going to be a vote in November among EBU members to decide Khan's fate, and a simple majority is needed to remove them from the contest. That's it. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty here. What is my take on this whole situation? Disclaimer, I am staunchly pro-Israel, and I'm also a very fervent Zionist. However, that does not mean I am an ideologue. I am a realist, first and foremost, and I deeply care about Eurovision. And let's be honest, the contest is in a really bad spot at the moment. Now, I believe it's disingenuous to claim that Israel is the biggest problem or the only problem plaguing Eurovision, because there's numerous others that I'll get to, but Israel being in the contest right now is a net negative for Eurovision. On principle, do I think Israel should be allowed to compete in Eurovision 2026? Yes, and the reason why is that Khan has not broken any rules. Contrary to what people think, Khan is not responsible for the actions of the Netanyahu government. And yes, what is happening in Gaza is tragic. If you don't have sympathy for the innocent people and children that have lost their lives as a result of this awful, horrible war, I don't think you have any humanity in you. And yes, there is a ton of propaganda coming out of Gaza. Hamas are masters of deception, and so many useful idiots in the West have bought their propaganda hook, line, and sinker. But that does not take away from the very real human suffering happening. However, Khan is not responsible for that. That's on Bibi, and I think it's unfair to punish Israelis for the actions of their government when many of them vehemently oppose Bibi and want him gone. Just a reminder, the last 2 Israeli representatives who were essentially seen as the devil in the Eurovision fan community, Eden Golan and Yuval Raphael, are anti-Netanyahu. I also think it's worth mentioning that Khan is very critical of Netanyahu. It would be one thing if they were a Bibi mouthpiece, but that's not the case. In fact, Bibi's government has tried to shut them down on several different occasions. And look, I understand why people want Israel out of the contest. I really do. I'm not blind. You can definitely make an argument that Israel is bringing the contest into disrepute, which is one of the reasons why Russia was banned in 2022. The main reason, though, and this is the difference between Khan and the Russian broadcasters, is that the Russian broadcasters are state-run, and they were spreading propaganda about the invasion and war in Ukraine, which broke EBU rules. Quote, in the case of Russia, the Russian broadcasters themselves were suspended from the EBU due to their persistent breaches of membership obligations and the violation of public service values. Here's the thing, I'm not naive. It's not just the war aspect of this that makes Israeli ESC participation controversial. Another way is how they've achieved their really great results the last 2 years. Israel has received an exorbitant amount of solidarity or sympathy votes, or whatever you want to call it, the last 2 years, and has had inflated results because of that. Now, let me make this clear. Do I think that Israel's 5th place result in 2024 was deserved? Wholeheartedly, yes. And sure, I am biased because Eden Golan is my girl. I am a self-proclaimed Eden Golan stan, but Hurricane was a damn good song. So much so that Euromelon streamed it and had it in their top 5 songs of the year on their Spotify Wrapped playlists. In a normal year, Hurricane definitely would not have gotten 323 televote points, obviously, but it would have gotten a whole lot more than 52 jury points, so I kinda think it evens out. However, did Israel deserve to finish 2nd in 2025? No, and you're lying to yourself if you think they did. The televote for Israel this year was almost exclusively solidarity vote. Hell, I was a solidarity vote for Israel, mainly because I wanted Yuval to be rewarded for her courage, her strength, her bravery, for handling the boos, hatred, and the death threats she received so beautifully, professionally, and gracefully, and for the unspeakable horrors that she survived on October 7th, which many people in the Eurovision fan community downplayed and even mocked because they are demons. I was so happy for her because she deserved that result. But let's be honest, New Day Will Rise was not on the same level as Hurricane, period. However, we cannot discuss Israel's solidarity votes without bringing up Ukraine's solidarity votes. In 2022, Ukraine received 439 televotes, by far the most in Eurovision history, and a record that will never be broken. Most of those votes were solidarity votes. Not all of them, but most of them. As a result, they won the contest in a landslide, whereas in pretty much any other year they would not have won. Not to say Stefania was a bad song, because it certainly wasn't. It would have been a top 10, maybe top 5 entry under normal circumstances, but it should not have won. End of discussion. 2023, Ukraine finished 6th with a song that had no business doing that well, receiving almost 200 televotes. And this year's top 10 result was egregious. That song shouldn't have even come close to the top 10. And I don't even think they deserve to qualify, and they won the first semifinal, even beating Tommy Cash, who came 5th somehow. We're not going to talk about that. That was a weird semi. However, their 3rd place finish in 2024 was deserved. It was a great entry. But there were political aspects to it that we cannot ignore. There were missiles in the staging, and the Ukrainian delegation wore shirts that said "Free Azovstal Defenders," which refers to 2,500 Ukrainian soldiers in Mariupol who were taken hostage by Russia. Now, let me preface by saying I do not have a problem with this. Despite everyone saying that Eurovision's an apolitical event, Eurovision is inherently political. But if you're complaining about Israel politicizing the contest just by being there and don't care about Ukraine doing it, you're a hypocrite, plain and simple. Another issue that people have with Israel is the advertising they've done the last 2 years. Let's set the record straight. Advertising your entry is absolutely not against EBU rules. Malta advertised on Grindr this year, and no one cared about that. Should it be against EBU rules, though? Maybe. We can definitely have a conversation about that. But again, advertising your entry is not against the rules. Anyone can do it. It's just that Israel has spent a lot of money on advertising the last 2 years, and retarded Euromelons think, oh well, those evil genocidal Zionists are buying votes. The contest is rigged. Wah. Ridiculous. You sound like Candace Owens, babe, and you don't want to be sounding like Candace Owens in the year 2025. Like I said earlier, Israel being in the contest is not the only issue that Eurovision's dealing with right now. They have pretty severe funding issues that stem from the banning of Russia, which was valid and the correct decision. I know someone's going to try to accuse me of being pro-Russia, so there you go. I'm fully pro-Ukraine. Go fuck yourself. And, Eurovision has been losing countries over the last few years, like Bulgaria, Macedonia, Romania. Moldova withdrew for the first time last year. The participation fees becoming way too high for some of these countries to stomach paying. Another issue, and this is one that I don't see nearly enough people talking about, the last 2 winners, Nemo and JJ, have had almost zero success post-Eurovision. Even Loreen in 2023 did not break into the mainstream like she should have. This needs to change if Eurovision is going to attract big artists in the future. It also doesn't help that the times they have had big artists recently, they haven't done very well. I'm looking at you, Ollie Alexander. Yeah, not ideal. Now, here's how I would solve this issue if I were the EBU. I would go to Khan and tell them, look, this vote, it's probably not going to go your way. You are not going to be able to participate next year. But we will offer you a deal. You agree to withdraw on your own terms for the sake of the contest, and once the war is over, we will happily welcome you back. I would assume that this would have to be a signed legal agreement between Khan, the EBU, and the majority of members, because if this was some sort of gentleman's agreement, there's no way that it's going to be respected. That's just reality at this point. Now, I fully understand why Khan is unwilling to do this. In their eyes, there's no legal reason for them to be removed, and I would imagine they're very fearful that if they withdraw or are kicked out, that they'll never be back, which I believe is a pretty fair assumption to make. They're also likely fearful of more attempted censorship laws from Bibi's government. Here's the truth, though. They're much more likely to be welcomed back if they withdraw amicably as opposed to them being kicked out, which seems relatively likely with this vote coming up. Khan has been put in a really bad situation, and there really isn't any good options for them at this point. The likelihood they're going to be able to participate as normal this year and for the contest to go on as normal seems very low. So here's what's going to happen. Either Khan is voted out and we get a peaceful Eurovision without any drama, hopefully, or Khan wins the vote. The 5 countries that say they're going to withdraw actually do it. Probably more will join them. I'm thinking Belgium, probably Norway, likely others, and then Eurovision is in jeopardy. As fun as it was the last 2 years trolling the Euromelons, and as vehemently and passionately as I defended Eden and Nuval, and as good as it felt to see them do so well, I'm not willing to sacrifice the contest for this. I'm sorry. None of this is ideal. I wish this was not the situation, but it is, and I care way too much about this contest to see it die. However, this will all be irrelevant if the war ends before the vote, which seems like it very well could happen, and that is a perfect segue into Trump's peace plan. So, yes, President Trump proposed a peace plan to end the war in Gaza, and in my humble opinion, this is about as good as it's going to get. So I'm going to read out the full plan, discuss it, is it viable, and will Hamas actually agree to it? So here's the plan directly from the White House's rapid response account. Number 1, Gaza will be a de-radicalized, terror-free zone that does not pose a threat to its neighbors. Number 2, Gaza will be redeveloped for the benefit of the people of Gaza who have suffered more than enough. Number 3, if both sides agree to this proposal, the war will immediately end. Israeli forces will withdraw to the agreed upon line to prepare for a hostage release. During this time, all military operations, including aerial and artillery bombardment, will be suspended, and battle lines will remain frozen until conditions are met for the complete staged withdrawal. Number 4, within 72 hours of Israel publicly accepting this agreement, all hostages alive and deceased will be returned. Number 5, once all hostages are released, Israel will release 250 life sentence prisoners plus 1,700 Gazans who were detained after October 7th, 2023, including all women and children detained in that context. For every Israeli hostage whose remains are released, Israel will release the remains of 15 deceased Gazans. Number 6, once all hostages are returned, Hamas members who commit to peaceful coexistence and to decommission their weapons will be given amnesty. Members of Hamas who wish to leave Gaza will be provided safe passage to receiving countries. I feel bad for it, whatever receiving countries those are. But anyways, upon acceptance of this agreement, full aid will immediately be sent to Gaza. At a minimum, aid quantities will be consistent with what was included in the January 19th, 2025 agreement regarding humanitarian aid, yada, yada, yada. Entry of distribution and aid into Gaza will proceed without interference from the two parties through the UN and its agencies and the Red Crescent, in addition to other international institutions not associated with any manner with each party. Let's keep going. I don't want to read this entire thing because this is ridiculously long, but Gaza will be governed under the temporary transitional governments of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee responsible for delivering the day-to-day operations of Gaza. The committee will be made up of qualified Palestinians and international experts, including Tony Blair, and headed and chaired by President Donald J. Trump. I love that he says his name like that. It's so funny. This also basically says that the Palestinian Authority is going to reform, hopefully that's true, and take over. Economic plan is going to happen to rebuild and energize Gaza. It will be created by convening a panel of experts who've helped birth some of the thriving modern miracle cities in the Middle East. Special economic zone will be established with preferred tariff and access rates to be negotiated with participating countries. No one will be forced to leave, so that's to everyone who says, "Oh, ethnic cleansing." Nope, not going to happen. and those who wish to leave will be able to do so and will also be allowed to come back. We will encourage people to stay and offer them the opportunity to build a better Gaza. Hamas and other factions agree to not have any role in the governance of Gaza, directly, indirectly, or in any form. All military, terror, and offensive infrastructure, including tunnels and weapon production facilities, will be destroyed and not be rebuilt. Yada, yada, yada. Demilitarization, all that good stuff. New Gaza will be fully committed to building a prosperous economy and to peaceful coexistence with their neighbors. Here's the big one right here. Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. As the ISF, that's the Israeli Security Forces, establishes control and stability, the IDF will withdraw based on their standards, milestones, and timeframes linked to demilitarization that will be agreed upon between the IDF, ISF, the guarantors, and the United States, with the objective of a secure Gaza that no longer poses a threat to Israel, Egypt, that's a big one, Egypt, or its citizens. And essentially, it's saying that the Palestinian Authority is going to be reformed. Once that happens, the conditions may finally be in place for a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood, which we recognize the aspiration of the Palestinian people. And the last point, the United States will establish a dialogue between Israel and the Palestinians to agree on a political horizon for peaceful and prosperous coexistence. So that's the plan. Israel has accepted it, and numerous countries released statements praising and endorsing the plan. Here are the Muslim countries that have endorsed the plan, or at the very least welcomed the efforts of the president to end the war. Qatar, Jordan, the UAE, Indonesia, Pakistan, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Lebanon. And the rest of the group, Australia, Azerbaijan, I guess Azerbaijan is also majority Muslim, but they're secular, so it's kind of different. Canada, China, the EU, France, Germany, India, Italy, Japan, Kazakhstan, New Zealand, Spain, and the UK. Even the Palestinian Authority, who are certainly not moderates, have endorsed the plan as well. Now the onus is on Hamas to accept the deal, which they're absolutely not going to do, by the way. Why would they? There's no reason for them to accept this deal. Hamas's goal is for the war to last as long as possible and for as many of their people to die as possible because it makes Israel look bad. This is their long-term strategy and it's working perfectly. Hamas has been emboldened by the feckless Western leaders Keir Starmer, Mark Carney, Emmanuel Macron, and others deciding to recognize a Palestinian state with absolutely no demands placed on the Palestinian Authority to moderate, who still has the pay-to-slay program in place and no plan at all to remove Hamas from power. It's a reward for terrorism, plain and simple, and Hamas agrees.
اليوم ليش كل الدول أعطيني بس أقول لك مثل ليش كل الدول أصبحت تعترف بفلسطين الآن قبل 7 أكتوبر هل في دولة تجرأت على أن تعترف بدولة فلسطين؟ أعطيني بس من ذلك. الآن حصاد 7 أكتوبر هو الذي خلى كل العالم يفتح عيونه على القضية الفلسطينية.
A little update here. I recorded most of this video on October 7th. Today's October 8th when I'm recording this part, and it seems like Hamas actually has accepted the deal, which is shocking. I cannot believe that, but President Trump put out a statement saying, "I am very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel, all surrounding nations, and the United States of America, and we thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey who worked with us to make this historic and unprecedented event happen. Blessed are the peacemakers. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America." And this is remarkable. I honestly saw no way that Hamas was going to agree to this deal. And let me make this clear. I'm still very skeptical that this is actually going to be agreed upon by Hamas, the full framework, because again, there's nothing in this for them. There's really no reason for them to accept it. So yeah, it's amazing that the hostages are coming home. This is what we've wanted to see for 2 years now. Hopefully that goes off smoothly and nothing bad happens. I'm just a little bit skeptical, you know, because we are still dealing with Hamas. If you know anything about them, you know, they've broken other ceasefire agreements in the past, so I'm not sure. I'm hoping for the best, though, and that this peace plan actually will work. So, yeah, that's the update as of October 8th. Apparently, the hostages will be released sometime this weekend, it seems like. Pray to God that everyone is healthy and that they are all going to be returned to Israel in one piece. So, Incredible news today. Was not expecting that at all, but let's continue with the rest. Here's the thing, though. This plan is going to happen whether Hamas likes it or not. Obviously, I am extremely concerned for the well-being of the remaining hostages who still have not been murdered at this point, but the IDF already is in control of like 3/4 of the Gaza Strip, so Hamas is running out of time, and now they're completely isolated outside of their Iranian overlords who have been weakened pretty substantially themselves. Even the Qatari government has told Al Jazeera to tone it down on the pro-Hamas propaganda. So yeah, Hamas really has no options here, and this is why Trump is so good on the Middle East issue. By the way, I am not MAGA. Yes, I voted for Trump in 2024, very reluctantly, but I'm certainly not a Trump fanboy. But Trump understands the Middle East better than any American president in history, and this is just objectively true. Middle Eastern countries do not tolerate weakness and concessions. The language they understand is strength and force. That's why Trump's peace through strength doctrine is so successful in this region. Why do you think we saw the Abraham Accords finally come to fruition during Trump's first term? I wish he would bring the same energy when dealing with Putin, and that he could force a peace plan like this to end the war in Ukraine, but I guess we'll take what we can get. So when Hamas rejects this peace plan, Israel is going to finish the job, and all I have to say is good fucking riddance. Alright, that's all I have for you today. I know a few people might be wondering where a brutally honest review of Eurovision 2026 is, and the truth is I have not had the motivation nor the time to make that video. If you do want to see it, let me know. I'll see if I can make time for it, but I have a full-time job and I'm working over 40 hours a week some weeks, so, and that video last year took so much time and effort, but we'll see. If you really want it, I'll see if I can make it happen. What do you think about Israel's participation in Eurovision next year? Should they be participating? Should they be banned? If the war ends, then should they be allowed to participate? I think absolutely. There wouldn't really be any arguments against it at that point. Is Trump's plan for peace in Gaza a step in the right direction? Is it actually going to work? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Follow me on Twitter @CalmEuroFan, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Peace.